And I give the floor to the Permanent Representative of Greece.
Mr. President, I also wish to thank UN High Commissioner of Human Rights, Mr. Turk, and the President of the Palestine Red Cross Society, Dr. Al-Khatib, for the detailed briefings. Colleagues, it has only been a week since we mourned the loss of UNOPS and UNRWA personnel who have been providing lifeline support in a region where thousands of lives are put at risk. Yet the safety and security of humanitarian workers continue to be undermined on a daily basis. We are informed of the tragic loss of 15 Palestinian Red Crescent Society and UN staff members who died during an Israeli ground operation in Rafah on 23rd of March. In this regard, I wish to reiterate our condolences. Our thoughts and prayers are with the families. Mr. President, the protection of humanitarian and aid workers must remain a non-negotiable, absolute principle at all times, as proclaimed by international law and more specifically the Geneva Conventions. The same principles apply to civilians. Since the resumption of hostilities in the Gaza Strip, hundreds of Palestinians have been killed, thousands have been forced to flee due to continued airstrikes and new evacuation orders, and all of them are in urgent need of food, medical treatment and shelter. Despite the reported dramatic surge in miscarriages by 300% during the war, children are still being born daily in Gaza under a total siege and deprivation of supplies for over a month. We regret the conditions that led the Secretary General to take the difficult decision to reduce the organization's footprint in Gaza, despite increased humanitarian needs and the growing concern over the protection of civilians. NGO workers report that the sense of fear and risk has significantly increased since the end of the ceasefire in Gaza. Mr. President, Greece has repeatedly condemned the October 7th terrorist attacks perpetrated by Hamas, as well as the ongoing detention and cruel and inhumane treatment of its hostages. We reiterate our demand for the immediate and unconditional release of all hostages, unequivocally condemning Hamas' terror. It is the people of Gaza that suffer in the face of Hamas' intransigence and Israel's relaunch of operation. In this context, we call on Israel to allow and facilitate the safe, unconditional, massive and unhindered delivery of humanitarian aid at scale, to restore access to electricity and water, as well as to ensure the protection of civilians and other protected persons, including humanitarian workers, in line with international humanitarian law. Colleagues, the situation in the West Bank requires our urgent attention as well. While the focus of the international community is currently on Gaza, the security and humanitarian conditions in the West Bank are deteriorating. We are gravely concerned about the reports of increasing violence, displacement of more than 40,000 people from refugee camps in the north, attacks on civilians and civilian infrastructure, as well as demolition and seizure of Palestine-owned properties. Such actions constitute severe violations of international humanitarian law and human rights law, and they undermine the prospect of a peaceful resolution on the Palestine issue based on the two-state solution. Greece also deplores the increase of settlement activity in the West Bank. Such attempts are contrary to international law and the relevant Security Council resolutions and have no legal validity. At the same time, UNRWA's role remains pivotal and indispensable. We are particularly troubled by the continuous attacks on UN premises, including yesterday's attacks on the UNRWA Health Center in Jabalia, which led to severe casualties, including 9 children. International law clearly proclaims the inviolability of UN premises, in the absence of which UN colleagues face severe risks as they work to save civilian lives and promote peace globally. Mr. President, the resumption of hostilities and the death toll is cause of grave concern. We call on all parties to seize the opportunity to return to the negotiations table with the aim of achieving a permanent ceasefire and the immediate release of all hostages. We commend the mediators, Egypt and Qatar and the United States, for not giving up on the efforts. Our discussion is always framed by the prospect of a two-state solution, aligned with the acquis of the Security Council resolutions, and recognizing the right of Israel to live in peace and security. The upcoming June conference, under the co-presidency of France and Saudi Arabia, could be a critical milestone in this regard. In addition, the Arab Recovery and Reconstruction Plan for Gaza, as presented by Egypt, is a constructive proposal, as is the upcoming International Reconstruction Conference to be held in Cairo next month. I thank you.
I thank the Permanent Representative of Greece for that statement.